Hi, welcome to a new video. In this video, I'll be making this black dress with organza ruffles at the bottom and sleeves. If this is your vibe, keep watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. For this style, I'll be using 2 yards of crepe fabric and 2 yards of organza. If you want yours fuller, you can use more organza. Now the first thing to do is to cut the lower part of this dress, and because I want to cut the front and the back together, I'm just going to take a measurement of my hip, which is the widest part of the lower part. Take a measurement of your hip, add some allowances and cut it out. Now you're going to be cutting out 2 pieces. One will be at least 2 inches wider than the other, which is going to serve as the zip allowance for the back piece. Now after doing that, I'll just go ahead to mark my zipper allowance so it will be visible for me and easy to work with. After doing that, I'll go ahead and place the front of this, the part that doesn't have the zip allowance. And don't forget, all your measurement is going to be starting from the front and not the zip allowance. So you're going to be ignoring the 2 inches for the zipper allowance. Now I've gone ahead to mark my starting line, which is also my waistline. I'll also be marking my hip line. I'll make a point there. I'll also be marking the actual length that I want for the lower part of this dress, and then I'll be marking my allowance. Now I'll take my ruler and rule the lines across, just like you see me doing. I'll also go ahead to label the waistline, hip line, and then the length. Now for the horizontal measurement, on my waistline, I'm going to be taking my waist circumference divided by 4. I'm going to be marking it, add an extra inch for my dart and 1 inch for my allowance. On my hip line, I'm going to be taking my hip circumference divided by 4 and then adding 1 inch for my allowance. On my length line, I'm just going to be taking away 1 inch from whatever I have on my hip, and that will be the difference between the hip and the length. Now I'm going to be using my free hand to connect all the points together. And I'm using my free hand because the fabric is actually very shaky, so it's hard to use the ruler at that point. After this, I'll just take my scissors and cut on all the lines. Now for the upper part, I'm also going to be cutting the front and the back together. You're going to make sure the back is at least 1.5 to 2 inches wider than the front, which is also going to serve as the zip allowance. As you can see, I've ruled the line and I just want to label zip allowance. I'm going to rule the line across to serve as my starting point. I'll take my shoulder measurement divided by 2. I'll mark the point and I added a little bit to serve as my allowance. Now for my vertical measurement, I'm going to be taking my bust point. I'll mark the point. I'll rule a line across. So that's my bust point. I'll also mark my under bust, my waistline, and then I'll also be marking the allowance. So after marking the points, I'll use a ruler to draw the lines across, just like you see me doing. I'll also go ahead to mark the point, bust point, under bust, waistline, and also the allowance. Now to get my armhole, I'll be coming down by 9 inches, and this is the bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5. I'm going to rule a line just like that. I'll also mark my shoulder point just like you see me do. I'll use a ruler to connect a straight line. The next step is to get my neck width and neck depth. For my neck width, I'm using 3.5 inch. And for the depth for the front, I'm using 5 inch. But because I'm cutting the front and the back, guys, I'm cutting the front and the back together. I'm also going to mark 1.5 inch for my back neckline. And that's the point that crosses to the zipper allowance. Now I'm going to be marking for my front neckline. I'm trying to use the cut. So this is the neckline. The one that is wider is the front, while the smaller one is the back neckline. To get my shoulder slope, I'll come down by 1 inch and then I'll connect to the neckline, just like you see me doing. Now to get my armhole curve, I'm going to be taking the midpoint of my armhole line. When I get the midpoint, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. Then on the chest line, I'm going to be putting my bust circumference divided by 4 to get my armhole. That's what I got. I'll mark a point across. I decided to add my allowance just to know I'm done with that. The next thing is to connect the 3 points together. My bust circumference divided by 4 to the half inch I went in by to the beginning of the shoulder. Just watch what I'm doing, please. Now this is my armhole for the back. To get my front armhole, I'm going to further go in by 0.5. I'll mark the point. I decided to use a white chalk to differentiate them properly. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing I did. I'll connect to the upper part and I'll also connect to the bust circumference divided by 4. Please just watch what I'm doing. Just connect the points just like you see me doing. Now the one in white is my armhole for the front and the one in red chalk is for the back. Now the next thing to do is to impute my horizontal measurement. So my under bust waist divided by 2, I added my allowance. My waist divided by 2, also add my allowance. Then I use my curve to connect all the points together. So I was about to cut this and then I remembered that I did not add my 1 inch allowance for my dart. I went ahead to add it and now I'm just cutting this off. I also added half an inch allowance to serve as my shoulder allowance. That's my joining allowance for the shoulder. So I'll go ahead to cut the neckline for the back piece first and cut the armhole for the back piece first. After cutting for the back piece, I'll remove the back piece, set it aside, and then I'll cut out the front neckline and the front armhole, just like you see me doing. So after that, I'll go ahead and notch the points for my darts. I'm just going to notch it and set it aside. So because I'm not using a side dart for this style, to avoid a zipper bulge, I like to go in from my zipper allowance by 1 inch or 1.5 inch and then just slant it into the waistline. Please just watch what I'm doing. This helps to eliminate zipper bulge. So I'll just go to my machine and use a loose stitch to join the zipper area. I use a loose stitch because it's just easy to rip it out because that's where my zipper is going to be. Now I'll be placing the upper part of this gown right side facing each other. And then I'm just going to be sewing on the shoulder line by 1/2 inch on both sides. After I was done, this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my dart. So for my dart, for the front part, I'm going to come down by 1 inch from the bust point. Remember, I already made a notch of 4 inches, so I'm just going to connect the 4 inch to the 1 inch that I came down by. Just watch what I'm doing. And on both sides, I'm going to be going out by 1/2 inch. You can choose to do 0.75 depending on the bust size. Then I'll be using my ruler to connect, just like you see me doing, just like this. Connect to the 1/2 inch. So I will be repeating this same process for the back part, but for the back part I'm just going to be coming down by 8 inch, which is like the armhole, and I'm going to be repeating the exact same thing that I did to the front. I'll head over to the machine to stitch down my darts. When I was done stitching down my dart, this is what it looks like for the back and this is what it looked like in front. I set the upper part aside and now I've gone in for the lower part. I also notched down my dart and I'm going to be repeating the exact same process for my dart, but my dart leg for the front is 5 inches. So I'm just going to go out on both sides by 1/2 inch. Please just watch what I'm doing. I'll repeat the process for the back piece and then I'll go to my machine to stitch down the darts. After I was done stitching it down, this is what it looks like. Now I'll go ahead to join the upper part and the lower part of this gown. Now this is the upper part and the lower part of this gown. I'm just going to be joining them middle to middle, right side to right side. You can go ahead to pin it down. Make sure that the darts matches each other. After pinning it down, this is what it looks like. I decided to mark 1/2 inch to be sure it is accurate. I'll repeat the same process for the back, but remember the back has a zipper allowance, so you can see me trying to loosen the zipper allowance a little bit to separate them so I can be able to join them. Make sure the front dart and the back dart are touching each other so your dress can come out neatly. After pinning this down, I also went ahead to mark half an inch because I'll be joining by half an inch. When I was done joining by half an inch, this is exactly what it looks like. I used the serger to serge it just so it can appear neatly, and now I'm placing them right side facing right side. Now I'm just going to be putting my body measurements. So you put your bust point divided by 2, you mark the point, your waistline divided by 2 on both sides, you mark the point, your hip line, just do the same across this dress, and then you're going to be using your ruler to connect all the points to form your dress. Now after getting the lines, you can choose to pin it down so it will stay in place, where you go to the machine and sew on the lines, exactly on the lines. After I was done joining, this is what it looks like. The dress is already coming together nicely. And for the neck, I'll be piping the neck with a bias strip. So I'll be starting from one end of the zipper allowance to the other end of the zipper allowance. And to do this, you're going to place your bias on the right side. You sew it round. Then you fold it over to the wrong side and sew it round. That's the easiest way to pipe your neckline using a bias strip. This is what it looked like when I was done. I also went ahead to add a zipper. So this is exactly what the dress is looking like. Now the next thing to do is to cut my sleeve, and for that I'll be measuring my armhole just like you see me doing. Now for the sleeve, I cut out a piece of fabric that is at least 25 inches long and 16 inches wide. I'll mark my bicep line, which is about 6 inches. I'll use a ruler to connect a line across. I'll also mark my elbow line, which is 10 inches, which is 11 inches. Then the full length. I didn't have a lot of fabric, so the entire material is the full length of this sleeve. Now I'll measure my round arm measurement. That's my bicep measurement, but I'm going to be placing the measurement in a slanted manner. I'm also going to be adding my allowance. After getting the point, I'm going to connect in a straight line, just like you see me doing. I'm also going to be taking the midpoint of this line and I'm going to be marking a point there. And then I'll be going up by half an inch and going down by half an inch to get to that line. That's the easiest way to get your armhole. Also on my elbow line, I'm going to be taking the measurements and dividing it by 2, also adding 1 inch for my allowance. I'll also do the same for my cuff line. The next thing to do is to use a ruler to connect the lines to form my sleeve, just like so. After cutting the sleeve, I'll open this up. And remember, I went in by 0.5 inch for the front sleeve. When I was cutting the armhole for the front, I'm just going to take out that 0.5 inch on the sleeve. I'll do it on both sleeves, and my sleeve is ready for joining. After joining the sleeve, this is exactly what it looks like. I'll go ahead and attach this sleeve to my dress, and this is exactly what it looks like. I've also gone ahead to fold the lower part of this dress. After I was done, I'm going to take the round measurement of this dress because that will be the measurement we'll be needing to cut out our organza ruffles. Now, just like when you are cutting any gather, whatever you get as the round measurement of where you are going to be gathering, you are going to be cutting times 3, 4, or 2.5 to get the ruffles. For example, if your round measurement for your waist or the lower part of this dress is 10 inches, I'm going to be using 30 inches to get my ruffles. So this was on fold and it was 6 inches. On fold, 6 inches, which means when it is not folded, it is 12 inches. So I'm just going to be cutting it to the end of the fabric. This was about 72 inches because this was 2 yards of organza, and I cut this into, I think I cut about 3 to 4 pieces of this organza. If I had more, I would have added to make this fuller. So if you want yours to be fuller, you might want to use maybe 3 yards of organza, but I used 2 yards, and I cut everything. Now, after cutting on fold and joining all the pieces, I'm just going to be stitching it on fold. So the way you cut it, fold it like that, and you go to your machine and stitch it just like you see me doing. Please, because this is an organza, you have to stitch it very neatly. I also went ahead to serge the mouth, and now I'll be turning this over to the right side. So this is me just trying to turn it over to the right side. After turning, you're going to make sure the stitched part is in the middle. So just open it up in the middle, just like this, and give it a good press. Make sure the part that has stitch is in the middle. Just watch what I'm doing and iron it thoroughly. When I was done, this is exactly what it looked like. This is exactly what it looks like. Now, to close the edges of this organza, you're just going to put it inside by 1/2 inch. Please just watch what I'm doing. Fold the edges inside by 1/2 inch, and then you go to your machine and then stitch it. This is me just pinning it so it will be easy for me to handle. You can also iron it. I think ironing makes it a lot easier. Fold it by 1/2 inch on the inside, and then go to your machine and stitch it on top. Now, to get my ruffles, I'll be using a needle and thread. I think it's easier to get your ruffles using a needle and thread. The easiest way to get your thread measurement is just to measure the roundness of your dress. Wherever you're going to be gathering, measure the roundness. Mine gave me 90 inches, so I cut out my thread to be 90 inches. So I'm just going to be using my needle and thread. Use a big needle, it makes it easier for you to gather it. So just watch how I'm going to be doing it. I'm going to be taking the needle and the thread from the outside to the inside in the middle. So my camera went out of focus for a bit, but this is exactly how it goes. You're just going to be gathering it in the middle using your needle and thread. So when I got to the end and dragged the organza, this is exactly how it came out. The next thing to do is to open this up a little bit until I get the measurement for the roundness of the bottom part of the dress, because we are going to be placing these organza ruffles on the bottom part of this dress. I also went ahead to do similar ruffles for the sleeve. Now, to place the organza, you're going to be placing the organza from one part of the zipper allowance at the back to the other part. You can choose to open it if you like and put the organza ruffles inside, but I choose to just sew it on top of it, and then I'm just going to be going round. You're just going to sew it round. You can mark a line 1/2 inch just so you'll be sure your organza is on a straight line, and just sew it across. I'll also repeat the same procedure for the sleeve. I'm just going to take my organza ruffle and sew it around the sleeve of this dress. Make sure you sew it gently and neatly, and that'll be all for this dress. After I was done, this is exactly what it looks like. Please note, this is not the original owner of the dress. The owner is a little bigger than the person wearing the dress, but I just got the closest person to the size of the owner to try this on, so we'll see what it looks like. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll be notified whenever I make a new video. See you in my next video. Bye.